Welcome to Talking Tech Journeys, hosted by me, Ben Whiteley of BPM Tech. We're delighted to bring you season 1 of Talking Tech Journeys. The aim is clear, to bring you some of the most engaging and respected figures within tech and transformation, providing a snapshot of their journeys to share knowledge, ideas and insights on all things tech and transformation. Sit back, relax and enjoy the journey. Hi, welcome to Talking Tech Journeys. I'm Ben Whiteley and I'm delighted to be joined by Rahul Kapoor, Director of Healthtech at CPI. CPI helps make great ideas and inventions a reality by using advances in science and technology to solve the biggest global challenges in healthcare and sustainability. Hi Rahul, thanks for joining. How are things?
Hi, Ben. Thank you for inviting me. Things are looking great. I think we have finally a new government that's sitting in. So lots of exciting changes to look forward to.
Good. Yeah, looking forward to discussing your journey further and your thoughts on innovation and technology across health tech, med tech, and the health and social care. So without further ado, let's sort of just take you back then. How, why, and when did you sort of first become interested in health and technology?
I think to fully answer that question, I need to go back before I was interested in health tech. So I
Okay.
graduated as a chemical engineer, and among my first few jobs, I worked in designing a factory for drugs, during which I quickly realized that I loved working with people more than working with pipes and
Yeah,
machines.
sure.
Uh, to get to that experience, I moved to production management, and I think, around 24 when I was managing a production unit in one of the largest paint manufacturing companies in India. And it was a very exciting experience. Had a reasonably large team in that production unit, and it was an instructive time when I learned a lot about management, delegation, and
Yeah.
working with different team members and trusting in that team. One of the things that really excited me at that in that organization was innovation. and and I felt that one of the bits that we worked on in production was really focus a lot on cost optimization. So I then looked at moving across to Unilever. And in Unilever, I was essentially responsible for leading innovation in the R&D translation space across Asia within the household care group. So essentially
Yeah.
the home care products. And that was very exciting. I got in touch with the commercial side of the business, worked on some very interesting, innovative technologies in the consumer goods space. And along all of these three experiences, a few things that I realized was, um, as an individual, as an engineer, I love how innovation can change the paradigm of how we as individuals interact with technology and our productivity in our personal time as well as our professional sort of work.
Yeah.
I love the opportunity to work with people and engage in different ideas and look at how we drive some of the business forward. And I appreciated the commercial aspects of business, which I felt challenged people to think differently and think, how do you achieve that? So that's what led me to move to my MBA at London Business School. And healthcare was almost a no-brainer after that in terms of thinking about the impact, the innovation. And I was lucky to join Johnson and Johnson just after MBA to manage one of the cardiovascular device launches across Europe.
Wow, so like I say, some journey. I mean, just in terms of like you've touched on innovation. I mean, obviously very successful Johnson and Johnson, Unilever, product development, etc., and driving that product development across Asia and digital health, etc. I mean, how do you foster a culture of innovation?
That's a very interesting question. At J&J, when I started in the cardiovascular medical devices space, my early conversations with our customers and the interventional cardiologist was very much around how that innovation and how what we were launching would help them in their daily lives, which essentially
Mm.
was treating patients who would come in with
Sure.
a heart attack, right? With heart
Mm.
related healthcare challenges. And what was very interesting was while some of the technologies we had were offered incredible impact and value
Mm.
to the patients, there were some significant gaps in what they wanted versus what we offered, and there were these
Okay. Yeah.
huge gaps which potentially could have saved lives, improved quality of life.
Mm.
And I think one of the uniqueness in the healthcare space is when you think about innovation, when you think about changes, there is a very strong motivating factor of the impact that that innovation can have. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember an experience where I worked with our global product development stakeholder in the US,
Mm-hmm.
and we worked along with various teams across the European markets. And one of the most important things we would do is try to understand across Europe with major clinicians, well-known cardiologists, on
Mm.
what are some of the biggest unmet challenges. And for me, that was critical because just being able to listen to customers and
Yeah.
ask open, unbiased questions to some of those um, people who use your product every day can just uncover needs and opportunities for innovation. And for me, that was one of the simplest, perhaps, but the most impactful ways which drove our need to innovate and our opportunity and our justification for why innovation can drive not just better clinical and patient value, but also help drive the business.
So ultimately, talking to the users within that sort of area and remit to understand their pain, pressure points, and how you can solve it.
Exactly, very much so. The the challenge I think I found in my recent career in
Mm.
innovation is I think healthcare systems have become perhaps more complicated with
Mm.
funding challenges.
Sure.
And when I mentor some of the startups, I see a trend which is quite interesting where I don't think that almost all the startups have identified the right potential customers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think while I think talking to the right customers or talking to customers about their challenges and gaps is critical,
Sure.
if you're not speaking to the right customer, that can be equally dangerous.
Mm.
So, as an example, which is perhaps which was perhaps something that was quite instructive to me, we in J&J were looking at a device that essentially is used to close arteries when you start a
Okay.
procedure.
Yeah. Sure.
It's
Yeah.
a reasonably key procedure because if in that procedure it can lead to some side effects and
Yeah.
healthcare complications.
Mm.
Now, one of the benefits that we had in our device was lower pain for the patients. One of the competitors, which always managed to perform better than our technology, was that it was easier to use for clinicians. And therefore, clinicians felt more comfortable and
Yeah.
confident in
Mm.
deploying and successfully completing that procedure. And what was interesting here was that in the needs and the gap, the clinician who's the primary user and
Sure.
their
Yeah.
needs
Yeah. Yeah.
are possibly quite important. So
Yeah.
just an insight in terms of driving innovation, speaking to wrong stakeholders sometimes can lead you towards insights that might be relevant for them, but
Mm.
if they're not your major customer, if they're not the key decision maker,
Yeah.
it might not really lead you to the right technology.
Yeah. No, very good point. That, and it's often discussed a lot with sort of founders and CTOs in terms of that really channeling and focusing on the right people. So yeah, really good example. So obviously I know you'd worked for sort of Johnson and Johnson, Unilever, global leaders, but you've also worked for sort of SMEs, so Digital Sport, Arc Health in the past sort of 2019 up to 2022. So, I mean, how was the sort of transition from global business leader to startups, Rahul?
Not an easy one, Ben. So moving from J&J to a startup, and we were about a team of five-ish when I
Mm.
started, was a very
Wow.
dramatic and a different experience.
Mm.
Uh, One of the first challenges I encountered was so when I started, we were working on a technology which enabled remote consultation using medical devices. And those medical devices enabled the remote consultation to be uh, far more efficient in being able to provide a clinician with better quality data,
Mm.
with diagnostics that could help the clinician make reasonably good quality judgments and
Yeah.
decisions about a patient remotely, right? So it
Yeah.
solved a very interesting need. It had medical devices as a tool, and it had a
Mm.
technology element. And I was really excited with the opportunity that it provided the healthcare systems to
Sure.
change how they could offer care. It could provide faster care,
Mm.
better care, lower cost of care because you could
Yeah.
treat patients in the first go. And my first shock was the credibility challenge that I came across. So while I thought our
Right. Yeah.
technology was incredible, as J&J, the access to key stakeholders that we had was very, very different to the stakeholder access I could get as a small startup.
Yeah.
And one of the bits that I quickly realized was the the fact that as a startup, you not only need to be able to talk about your technology, what it can
Mm.
offer, the benefits, but the overarching trust that you often need to build before
Yeah.
you talk about the
Yeah.
technology. Because without that trust, the the value and the benefits that you think
Mm.
might exist are significantly discounted by probably your customer listening to you. So that was one of
Yeah.
the biggest challenges that I think I came across when I moved into that startup.
So ultimately building that credibility and trust in the brand and like you say the value proposition and value and services that you could offer to the businesses or to the end customer.
Yes. And what complicates the challenge in a startup even more is that when you're trying to get towards the right product market fit, and when
Yeah.
you're trying to optimize and develop your product, your value proposition can often change quite quickly.
Sure. Yeah.
And being able to identify and listen to customers and think about the
Mm.
right insight that can help you grow and help you build your technology versus building credibility in your company as a whole is a very it's essentially you're in a moving train trying
Yeah.
to jump from one carriage to another carriage on the top of a train, not inside the train.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that just means that there are many different moving parts. So I think
Yeah.
what's interesting is a value proposition in a startup is
Mm.
never static,
Yeah.
and I think it was important to get some early strong supporters
Yeah.
in the fundamental of what the team can achieve.
Mm.
So one of the things that we often did was understand and identify sponsors who we thought would not just help us with what we have today and we
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
in the team and the technology, but support how we are moving as an organization and how they
Mm.
could support our growth. And it's amazing because I think in the UK we tried expanding across into other markets, but we found some incredible individuals in the UK who supported our growth, and I think that was probably a significant driver towards a success as well.
Yeah. So the importance of sort of having cheerleaders and supporters and
Precisely.
ultimately being agile and able to pivot and flex, iterative sort of change to that product to meet demands, which is no doubt a major sort of benefit to smaller, more agile organizations. So
Exactly.
I mean, just in terms of it sort of leads quite nicely into the here and now, but just before we step into your world today, I thought it'd just be important just to talk about your involvement back in 2009 with sort of Dharma Life and what, the social impact organization that you sort of co-founded and how that came about. So are you able just to sort of elaborate a bit further on that?
Absolutely, and I think that's a sidestep that we can do. During my MBA, along with some of our friends at LBS,
Mm.
we decided to form Dharma Life, and it was really born out of a need and a strong intent from our group to look at driving impact in the world. And our philosophies was what brought us together. We believe that while there's significant value via nonprofits and charities
Sure.
that can deliver, you know, value to people
Mm,
living at a with a very low income, we believe that the lack of access of basic products that could enable individuals to pull themselves out of a stage of poverty or
mm,
stage in which they could access all the opportunities was missing. And we really came out with a really simple but very difficult execution idea. And our idea was, what if we could create a retail network that could access the billions of people who live at the bottom of the pyramid?
yeah. Okay.
And fundamentally, with that idea, we started building a network initially in India, and we also piloted in South Africa, where we worked along with small villages, identified individuals in each villages who would become our entrepreneurs, created a wide network of those village level entrepreneurs who would
Mm,
essentially have access to products and services that usually sat in different verticals, including energy, health, elements such as nutrition. So we brought on more and more platforms which would enable access to products.
brilliant.
By creating a commercial model, we were able to help those village level entrepreneurs to also
Mm,
access income and a stable job, upskilling them in terms of their capabilities, and
yeah.
create a network across the country where they were underserved and the only access they had were of essentially unstructured retail
Mm,
structures, which
yeah.
really stopped them from accessing anything beyond perhaps
Mm,
tobacco and
wow.
products that were
Yeah.
not really conducive to how they could pull themselves
Yeah.
out.
So no doubt very humbling. I mean, how has this sort of influenced you as a person over time?
One of so my experience, and we visited some of the villages at the time of the launch, and one of the most humbling experiences was a misconception that I feel awful about, but I would really want to share this,
Mm,
is that we often, and I often, I've grown up in capital cities, in
sure.
Delhi,
Yeah.
in large cities, and one of the dramatic perception changes that I had was that individuals who had a low income,
Mm,
it, I think it's a misunderstanding that they do not have the capacity to spend. Obviously, the capacity to spend is different,
yeah.
but my perception really broke with the fact that if they're presented with a wide, varied set of choices, which include reasonable, good choices, we realized that we were launching a light-based product which worked on solar energy, which
Mm,
helped many children who could not study well in their school because
mm,
quite often they would not have access to electricity. So they would not be able to read anywhere, anytime after evening because they
wow.
didn't have
Yeah.
access to lighting. Many farmers would have to go into fields, but they would be bitten by snakes or have other kind of
Mm,
accidents because again, they didn't have access to some basic things like light.
yeah.
So some of these fundamental challenges, when we gave people the option to purchase and buy some of these, they absolutely switched and were convinced and moved
Yeah. I
to
can
some of
imagine.
these
Yeah.
products. And I
Mm,
think what we realized was that there's a huge segment of people who are willing to purchase
yeah.
products, but just never have had the products which they could access, which could truly change their lives. So I
Yeah.
think my big learning was uh, is the and it was quite humbling, which is uh, at a low income threshold, I think individuals are still people
Mm,
that I met were very motivated towards making a difference to
yeah.
their lives.
Yeah.
And I think we need to work hard towards giving them the opportunities as well as access that is available to people
Yeah.
with more income in the
Mm,
same way. And I believe
yeah.
that would make a difference that would make a significant difference.
No, it's creating opportunities, and it's good that they've embraced. And as I mentioned to you off air, that's quite, resonates with myself, with my granddad being born in India and working on the rigs. And Yeah, seeing that sort of poverty firsthand, and one thing that I've always lived with, he worked in Mumbai, now, well, Bombay, is, there's never any food wasted in our house, I'll put it that
Mm.
way. So, yeah, but no, well, that's really insightful, so thanks for that. So let's sort of bring you back to 2022. So obviously, we've covered your background and experience. You joined CPI, I think they're 20 years old this year. So it'd be great
Yes.
just to put into context who is CPI.
CPI, I think, are an incredible organization in the UK. We are what is called a catapult, part of high value manufacturing catapult.
Hmm.
And essentially, we exist to drive innovation and industrial growth in the UK in that area post research and pre commercialization. So,
Hmm.
CPI offer services to the market in the pharma group, in the health tech group, and in the materials, which is food, feed, and agri-tech. In the health tech space, one of the things we are really trying to do over the last couple of years
Mm.
is increase the impact that CPI can have on the startups, the innovators, both
Yeah.
from the smallest innovator and individual innovator to the largest medtech companies to be able
Mm.
to access unique, strong, competitive capabilities at CPI that
Sure.
are differentiated, that are difficult to access to
Mm.
help them scale up their next generation of technologies in the UK and lead to industrial growth in the UK. We are a non-profit, and I think we are a unique organization in the sense that we are limited by guarantee. We don't have any shareholders,
Mm.
and our incentives really are to drive that success for our customers, success for our stakeholders that we work with,
Yeah.
as well as the UK economy.
Real. So I mean, you've mentioned sort of startups, large corporations, regulators, government, etc. I mean, do you have sort of a common thread or type of company that you support?
We work, I think 60% of our work is with SMEs, but we
Right.
also work along with the large and among the largest
Hmm.
medtech and their pharma organizations in the world.
Yeah.
For SMEs, our offer is quite unique because with our wide capabilities, we have more than 200 million pounds worth of capabilities.
Hmm.
We have a team of more than 750 people. The last I checked, I believe, majority of
Yeah.
them scientists, engineers, ex-industry, and ex-research staff. So the ability to access such a unique data,
Mm.
such a unique skill set across CPI for SMEs can be quite impactful. And I
Yeah.
think we work with many different organizations who are able to use that unique set of capabilities to really build their unique sort of products. We also equally work with some of the major organizations in trying
Mm.
to solve some of their challenges. And I think those can really help us work with the largest organization, drive
Sure.
investment and growth in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, as we sort of mentioned previously, I work and support and speak to a lot of, health tech, med tech entrepreneurs, and what is apparent is the passion and abundance to solve problems through innovation, but also on the flip side, can be a very challenging and lonely place. And I know that the health tech, med tech sort of fraught with significant obstacles and
Yeah.
higher risk of failure than other industries in the UK. So just in terms of sort of that early stage innovator, what sort of advice would you give them in terms of
Hmm.
success?
Let me take this question back a second because I think this is a question I'm really passionate about.
Okay.
And let me start off by saying that I have to say I feel really lucky that in our startup we managed to commercialize our medical device across the NHS, and we were financially successful in our technology, in a medical device, a digital medical device that we were able to commercialize. It was not easy. It
Hmm.
took a lot of hard work, and our scale of adoption still remained slow. And in each trust, each physical area, we had to re-demonstrate our capability. We had to re-demonstrate and revalidate our technology, and that slowed down adoption a lot. So
Hmm.
I want to start by saying that the journey is complex. I think there is an opportunity to succeed, of course, but
Yeah.
it is possible to succeed, and it is equally possible to fail with this complex
Sure. Yeah.
ecosystem. I think one of the things that's interesting, if you think about it at a very high level, is a stat that I think is worth talking about, that in the medtech space, if you think about the patents across Europe, to be honest,
Yeah. Yeah.
the highest number of patents are in the medical devices, medical device diagnostics, and the related spaces. So clearly, it's a sector where there is a significant amount of innovation that is being driven by academics and various
Hmm.
innovators across the world. But when you think about the cost of product development and taking
Yeah.
some of those patents out to market, the
Hmm.
cost of a typical product up to an FDA approval has gone up to about 13 million pound, 13
Wow.
million dollars,
Okay. Yeah.
sorry, and which is about triple of what it was about 10 years ago.
Mm.
In the last 10 years, the market access and the reimbursement rates have certainly not
Yeah.
tripled
Yeah. I can
for
imagine.
a
Yeah. Sure.
significant bunch of products. So I think what we are seeing is a significantly higher rate of innovation, or high rate of innovation. On the flip side, we see a significant stress and strain in the healthcare systems, in the adoption and the reimbursement and the return on investment that medtech companies have in translating this.
Mm.
So I think starting from that landscape, I'd probably say it's not easy, it's tough. And a
Yeah.
few pieces of advice that I'll offer are: number one, I think we work with many innovators, and some of the most basic pieces of advice is thinking about your regulatory journey to the
Okay.
market.
Yeah.
Health tech and medtech are a lucky sector where you do have a better thought out go to market approach than many other sectors, like
Yeah.
consumer goods that I work with.
Sure.
And you can absolutely understand your regulatory journey with the right research and the right stakeholders you can
Mm.
speak to. And that regulatory journey can really instruct you in terms of the time to market, as well as the cost to market, and
Yeah.
some of the facilities and capabilities you're going to likely need to grow and to build a strong product. The second suggestion I'd have is around speaking to the right customers, as we spoke about early on.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think understanding the true market gaps with the right customers can be tricky. I've often seen people speak to clinicians when they're often selling diagnostics, and diagnostics which may be better positioned in
Yeah.
a lab-based
Yeah.
environment, and speaking to lab managers would be probably better. So there are very small nuances in who your key customers are, and they may not be the people you might think you're speaking to. So think about the right stakeholders, because I think that's going to define your go-to-market approach, and equally the cost. I
Yeah.
think the final bit is UK is right now, and globally, we are looking at a regulation change across Europe. UK
Yeah.
is looking at changing their regulations. But at the same time, there are opportunities to look for. There are sometimes very clearly defined frameworks for product launches. There
Hmm.
are opportunities for advanced technologies investment through programs such as IDAP that the UK has launched for innovative technologies
Yeah.
and to improve their access. So be aware of some of those opportunities that exist. Innovate UK supports a lot of innovation and technology growth that
Mm.
companies can work with, and we work with many of those innovators to help their technology develop. So be mindful of some of the opportunities, the financial opportunities, and the easier market access routes that may perhaps be available to you.
Great. And I know obviously CPI sort of November 23 sort of published a couple of reports in terms of the state of the UK's health tech industry and the challenges and opportunities and scale up and action plans. So it'd be good just to, if you could outline sort of the key findings and the report, and the potential of an action plan, and what that sort of looks like in terms of
Hmm.
the environment and the the environment we're in today ultimately.
Yeah, so CPI worked on a program, and we delivered a program called Health Trip. That program essentially had more than £7 million of funding, which
Mm.
was primarily used to deliver voucher-based funding for regulatory support for SMEs in the UK. And as part of that engagement, we worked with many of the companies in the UK to identify gaps and opportunities in
Hmm.
regulatory, which were fed back into the Patrick Vallance report and review, of regulatory reform at that time. Some of the recommendations were very much about access to innovative medicine and the related funding and how we should look at driving some of those. It talked about opportunities such as driving a better access to digital or software as a medical device, and
Hmm.
probably a clearer framework to some of those. So those were some of the major recommendations in the regulatory work. The second that we worked on was around the IVD roadmap for the UK. Now, UK has a rich history in IVD sector, and we have a
Yeah.
very thriving sector in this space. We worked on that report and engaged with some of the major medtech stakeholders across the world, resulting in a conversation that we are now trying to lead on, which
Mm.
is looking at next generation diagnostics capability in the UK, where CPI is actively looking at building and
Okay.
growing a consortium in the UK, bringing some of the major diagnostic players. We also published reports around what are the major gaps for scale up for medtech, wherein we
Yeah.
identified potential opportunities for investment for the local authorities as well as the bodies across the country looking at investment,
Hmm.
which identified opportunities such as clean rooms, which are often not available at a cost-effective rate, access to some specific capabilities, such as a wet lab space that may not always be available at the right cost. So there are some opportunities that we identified as part of that report. And we are continuing to talk with stakeholders across the UK's ecosystem to
Mm.
look at how can we continue to offer support like this to
Sure.
organizations and innovators to help them move
Mm.
faster past the regulatory challenges.
Yeah. So, I mean, just in terms of your thoughts on, the health tech ecosystem over the next couple of years, and how the UK can sort of try and remain that sort of competitive global edge. I mean, what are your thoughts and CPI for in terms of that sort of health tech ecosystem over the coming years?
So firstly, I'm very excited with the fact that we have a new government, and I think that brings an opportunity for change. And
Yep.
I'm looking forward to what that means for the sector. A few comments and a few thoughts where I don't know if these are going to be changes we're going to see, because
Mm.
I think that remains to be seen. But a
Early
few
days. Yeah.
opportunities for success I think we have are: number one, I think we need to look at how we can use NHS not just as an innovative and an incredible healthcare system that offers high quality care to patients
Mm.
at no cost. I think it's one of its kind in the whole world. But I think we need to think about how we can use NHS to also support the technology innovations that the UK can offer to the world,
Mm.
and we can get access for patients first in the UK for some of those innovations. So there's a space to look at how we can accelerate innovative technologies, and some of the challenges around that are funding and adoption barriers that exist in the NHS. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of changes we'll see in the next couple of months and maybe a year to look
Yeah.
at helping innovators through that. I think the second would be, we are coming to a stage where in 2025, we'll have some regulatory stability with the UK CA mark, as well as the stabilization of where the EU's regulatory reforms are changing.
Mm.
I think it's going to be useful to have a bit of stability with the regulatory changes, which might change how healthcare technologies go to the market. But
Mm.
having a clearly defined and identified pathway is is an incredibly useful parameter for innovators for whom the launch journey can span many different
Mm.
years, and changes in regulatory can often not be beneficial to some of these organizations, because it means that they may need to have additional effort and cost to go through
Yeah.
some of these regulatory. So
Yeah.
that's the second I'm quite looking forward to seeing. I think the third is, we in CPI and many of the stakeholders we know are looking at an enhanced engagement with the industrial stakeholders.
Okay.
And this is incredible because I think it means that we're going to be able to work closer with the industry, closer with the UK government, to look at what would be the right suitable co-investment opportunities in the UK.
Yeah.
forming a strong health tech ecosystem is an incredibly important objective because without having the right small startups, early innovators to scale ups to large organizations, the ecosystem is never going to be complete. And having the whole breadth of those organizations can create an impactful ecosystem and help organizations not just access funding, but also
Yeah.
access an exit right at the end if they are looking for a sale to the large organization. So having that broad, closer engagement and the work that CPI is doing in helping bring that councils together is something that I'm looking forward to as well in the future.
Well, lots of good points raised. Unfortunately, funding and sort of adoption is, like I say, a major issue. And like I say, the scale ups and the driving of innovation is something that we could probably talk about for, many, many hours. But look, Rahul, many thanks for your time and great talking today. And many thanks for obviously exploring your journey further. So, yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Ben. It's great talking to you.
Great. Thanks for your time. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
listening. We hope you enjoyed Talking Tech Journeys, and we'll catch you next time. Good company and colleagues in a career make the journey more rewarding. If you did enjoy, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favourite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. Don't forget to follow and join the Talking Tech Journeys podcast group on LinkedIn, where you can join in debate and message us directly if you'd like to be considered as a guest, have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can also email ben.whiteley@bpmtech.co.uk. Until next time, enjoy